having listened through part 1 and having listened through the second part that I recorded, I thought I needed to add some context. Also, some of the comments that I've received and overwhelming people wanted me to do this. Whether they'll still want me to do it after they've listened to them, I honestly don't know. But I wanted to add things in that gave a little bit of context to the core people I talk about, the people I hang about with, who I gambled with. Also, the bar-ins. So that's what I wanted to talk about. The first bar-in, I guess, and by the time I'd lost count, and give context to everything around, because I haven't explained it all, and I want to give context around everything. So, I mean, we'll start with the core people that I hung around with. So the core people were, I think the first person I gambled with as a gambler was my mate Jimmy, who I used to go out drinking with on a Friday night. He never had any money, and we started off like literally scabbing machines, getting drunk, until I became quite successful. And he was always skint, so I was pretty much gambling with my money, so I was always making money. And sometimes he would go halves with me on machines, but a lot of the time it was pretty much me. And then the first couple of times I went onto the motorway services, he came with me, like, and I kind of almost like blanked it out and forgotten that even happened, but it did happen. When I moved on to sort of the next few people that I gambled with, obviously Pete, who you're going to hear about in the third part now, which would have been the second originally, from Carlisle. He was like the first person that I seriously went down the road with, and I guess the reason behind that is, so we met online originally, didn't know each other from Adam, had never bumped into each other, but we became friends. And I mean, I remember when £15 Revolution came out. I mean, it's not specifically that's the time we met way before this, but £15 Revolution came out, and I had us in Birch Services. There was a £15. It was on the original programme, the one that gambled the steps. And I remember playing it when it very first came out, and I blew my brains in on it. I didn't win, but I did poorly on it. And I very much remember him sort of saying to me, "No, you play it like this, you play it like that, you do this, you do that." And I went from hating a machine to liking a machine, and obviously learnt a lot about that machine, but he certainly got me onto them. And there was probably other things that he got me onto as well. So I mean, there was Pete who definitely shaped me, made me like granite, as you're going to hear him sort of part 3. Beyond that, there was Matt from Buxton who worked out lock and load, so I did slot with Matt a little bit here and there. I mean, Matt used to go out when Pete wasn't available and come down the road with me, and he very much went off and did his own thing, but somebody that I got to know. And I mean, he came on the meets when I touched on the meets when we used to go to Blackpool. He'd literally go anywhere, he didn't care where we sent him. We'd go in like the roughest pub in the world and slot things. And he was quite a talented slotter. He was good at skills, and he knew his stuff. He again, like I touch on all of us in the next video, but we're all on scales, on a spectrum somewhere. And I think it's fair. We see things that other people didn't see, and it'll be a trait with an awful lot of gamblers, slotters that played for a living around the times we were doing. Definitely, you know, there's something, I'd say, that's fair to say, abnormal, but certainly different about the way we think and the way we see things. And, you know, they're just predicting where reels are going to spin to isn't a prediction. He knows where they're going to spin to. You know, he knows what the range is for the reels. And it takes a special type of brain to be able to fathom that out and to know that, because the rest of us just dismiss it as chance. I mean, I would, to a point. Not I don't dismiss it as chance. If you watch me play lock and load, I know exactly where things are going to spin to, what symbols, etc., etc. When I get like spins and stuff, he's just sort of next level, isn't he, Just? And then, yeah, so obviously there's Just. It was part of our core group. Little John. So John's appeared on a few videos. we always used to call him Little John from Kendal, but really Little John because of Robin Hood, even though John's not actually that little. But we've always called him Little J or Little John, like all the time I've known him. Beyond that, people that are sort of form part of my gambling journey. Dan from Tunbridge, who I met online, and I mean we slotted together. We did days together here and there, up and down the country. I mean we used to go to Oxfordshire area and slot together, which was bizarre for somebody that lives in Tunbridge and somebody that lives in Manchester, but it was kind of halfway between the two, and we'd go meet up and do a day around like Bicester and Oxford and all the way up that, all Warwickshire, all the way up that neck of the woods. We do all that area together. I used to go down to Tunbridge, and I touched on sort of the Kent area. Used to go down there. Used to go down and we even to the point where I think me and Dan went and had a look at Dover Cali ferries. I think we made more around the towns, though, ironically, than we did on ferries. But we did even go and have a little look at that as kind of just an avenue to go down, I guess. Who else was within our group? So you had, obviously, my group. These aren't necessarily the core group now. These are sort of people a bit further afield. But the other people in the core group, or within our group, I guess, was Rob from Bedford. What a lovely guy he was. I'll get on something in a bit about Rob. Zed, who was from London area. Was my mate. I think his name doesn't escapes me, and it shouldn't do. From the northeast, whom we used to go down to ATI together. I forget his blooming name now. He worked for Nissan. That's about the only thing I can remember about him. He worked for Nissan. He was a lovely guy. So he was like sort of part of our wider group. Was there anyone else? I'm probably going to miss people. Like genuinely going to probably miss people of kind of the people that either I slotted with or knew. I mean, I think I touched on in the third video, Ash from Sheffield, like didn't slot with Ash. We did do the odd day together, I think, and we used to bump into each other all the time on services and various places. I wouldn't really associate him with being in the group, but we did talk on the phone and message each other and did share a few tricks, some good and some bad. But yeah, we said another person that I kind of knew, but it was not a wide group of people. And then you've got Cheerful Pessimist, who lives up in. Well, he lived in Dundee at the time. He doesn't live there now. He was sort of part of, I'd say, the core and wider group, really, as well. Again, a lovely guy. I never went up to Dundee, I think, once. I liked Edinburgh. I did like that area. Dundee's a trek, though, like a full trek. I used to go up there. I mean, me and Pete used to gamble up as far as Glasgow. So, I mean, that was kind of the core group. And then, say, things like the Blackpool meets. I mean, I never forget the day that... I never forget the day that we went up there. I think it was the first time. Just swears he was never there. He might not have been there, but I feel like I charged my phone in his car. I genuinely feel like I did. Do you know what? My missus would know. She'd 100% know, because she'd remember. And then I forgot one more person who I slotted with, which is really rude of me, which was Ross, who lives up Penrith area, and Ross knew P. They used to play the same areas and the same services and stuff like that. And Ross and me did several years together on the road. A really good friend of mine, really nice guy, who I got on very well with, and I don't think since he stopped slotting, I don't think he's even left Penrith ever, to be honest with you. He's probably still there, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, again, another person that was close to me. We used to even family holiday down to the south coast together, his family and my family, and yeah, he was a good guy. I probably got him out of a few bits of strife over the years, but yeah, he always had my back, which was nice. And yeah, it's a top guy, and that's pretty much all the group, really, to be honest with you. All the people, so say some of them people core group, and some of them probably more just sort of associates, but I slotted with most of them. Rob and Zed I didn't slot with. We talked an awful lot over the years, but yeah, I certainly didn't slot with them. So I guess that gets you on to like who the best skill players that I ever knew. And obviously Juss is ridiculously good. he's got a unique feature about him as Mr. W, and his unique feature that he has is that he doesn't rely on. He's actually better at hitting a skill based on sound rather than based on visual. So by what I mean with that is, for example, when he talks at the start of Carousel, it goes ha ha ha. Yeah, if you hit it on the third ha, that's when you actually nail the jackpot. It took me about 3 goes practicing it to do it on a machine at Martin Sanderson's. When me and him went there and did a session from there when he did Force 10. But yeah, I mean, he, high-low lottery on cash attacks, he did it off sound. And I think the person that gave him that didn't think it was doable, or he didn't think he could do it, and he could do it. And it took him a long time, and I'm sure he will come on to that when I sit and talk with him, because we had a chat about it, because we went up to Blackpool the other day together, and the intention, I think, is me and him are just, he said, oh, you write stuff down, but you're going to ask me. And I was just like, do you know what? I think people just prefer me and you having a chat. Anyway, so other skill players, right? Okay, so Matt was pretty decent at skills, didn't miss a great deal. He was pretty reliable as well. And then yeah, Rob. So Rob from Bedford. I never forget. Somebody didn't slot with, but yeah, obviously we knew each other, and we did go to ATI together. I mean, he's again one of these people that came as guests of Empire with me. And anyway, I think he did. Anyway, maybe he didn't. Maybe him, and who knows. Anyway, we definitely went to ATI together. We met up beforehand and stuff. There's probably a couple of stories about that as well, but. I remember us going down one year. It was a year that Do You Feel Lucky came out, and I remember watching Rob do that. And I'm actually crap at that one. I really dislike it. And I remember Dave saying to me at Real Fruits, saying, yeah, I mean, in his head he says flip flop, flip flop, flip flop. It's just one I really, really struggle with. Do You Feel Lucky? I don't like it at all. I never forget watching Rob do a few skills, and when he was doing them. His eyes like flicker, like up and down a bit. It's bizarre. They like shake up and down as he's watching the reels, yeah, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever watched. But he was absolutely mustard at skills. He didn't miss much. So yeah, mate, so they're probably the 3 that stick out to me as being shit hot at skills. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that were. But them 3 certainly stick out in my head as being good at them. And then the other story that year at ATI that I'll not forget was there was a Willie Mill round corner. We all were having a wander around like the local area, and went into the Willie Mill, and there's battle axe in there, and everyone's like, "Nah, it'll be levered. There've been so many players around here." And nobody wanted to take it on. I was like, "Oh, fuck it, I'll play it." So I jibbed on it, jumped on, started playing it, and I potted it almost straight away, and it ran on me. So that was quite a nice little touch, considering we hadn't really gone down to slot. It was more about kind of the showcase, I guess, and seeing the new things that had come out that year. I mean, I remember another year at ATI taking my missus down, and me eldest. She'd have been like a toddler, and because she was there as a toddler, she literally came on with just bags and bags of sweets from the stalls. I met Steve Davis there. He was there one year. He wouldn't play me on a cut down snooker table. Like he played other people, but he wouldn't play. He wouldn't play me. So I asked him, and he was doing nothing, and he didn't want to play. Which was annoying, really, because I'd love to have played my hero at snooker, but hey-ho, never happened. So that's kind of the people, I guess, the core sort of people around, group-wise. And then going to get on to bar-ins, because I think this will give it a lot of context now as to why I chose the route I chose. So, first bar-ins that I remember... and I got to stress, I wasn't in my eyes, and in them days, I certainly wasn't particularly good, in machines. I was obviously not losing money, but yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't say good. So the first one that I recall was a local pub that I used to drink in every Friday and every Saturday night. We used to meet up there and go out, and I took I think it's a gap year from uni, maybe it could have been a gap year from uni, and I ended up going in like the odd lunchtime here and there, and because I drunk in there on a Friday and Saturday night, I never assumed there was ever going to be any issue at all. I guess the stress wasn't particularly good, and I'd gone in like a couple of lunches, maybe once a week, and one on the machines both times. And then I bumped into this guy that worked there, and he's a bit of a stoner, and I knew him. He was like one of your kind of Slipknot, sounded a bit like Beavis and Butthead, and yeah, he was just a stoner. And he worked there, and he bumps into me in the street, and he went, "Oh, by the way, you're bad." Front pub. I'm like, "You come again? Do you mean I'm bad?" Yeah, she said you can't come in here winning money out of the machines every lunchtime. I was like, I've been in like twice on a lunch. Somebody had obviously got the complained, probably one at regulars, and that was the end of me. From there, that was the first one I really recall. And then shortly after that, not a lot longer after that, they're both like ridiculous. The first times I ever got barred from anywhere, like fully ridiculous. And the second one that I recall, I was stood on a train station platform. I'd been at uni probably a few months later, and I remember getting a phone call off my missus going, "Oh, by the way, you're barred from this." It was like a pub club, and it'd become like kind of a sort of scroty sort of daytime drinking cheap beer pub. And I'd literally gone in there, I think, to meet my missus, and I think I'd been in like twice. And the first time, I don't think I even played a machine, and then the second time, I grabbed like a board out of both machines, like literally just grabbed a quick board. I was just waiting, and it was like one of them was an original Simpsons, and by grab a board, I think it just ran me a barcode in. No, it didn't run me a barcode in. It run me in Most Tavern. That's what it ran me in. And you have no choice but to put in a code on Most Tavern. It just doesn't do anything, so you do it. So like obviously total win series, meeting a chip. Got what did I get? Like 5-10 quid, maybe 5 minutes, maybe probably a tenner. And I played the other machine, and it jammed up on me, or something didn't pay out, or something. I can't remember. And I'd didn't even kick off about it. I just went, waving asked, and I got a phone call, stood on platform saying, "Oh, by the way, you're barred." What am I barred for? It's like, well, you put in a secret code apparently. Like she obviously knew that I played machine. She knew what I was doing. And I was like I literally had no choice but to put in a code. So I got barred. They were like the first two I remember, and I certainly wouldn't consider myself decent at that point. But yeah, it's just like utter bullshit reasons to get barred. So that was quite frustrating. I'm sure people in comments will have like some really good stories around getting barred and various other things, but yeah, it was utter crap. And then the first real barrings I started taking. Sorry, I'm having a swig of my beer. First real barrings that I remember were like, I started travelling by this point, and I remember going to Macclesfield, and there was top of the hill there was an arcade, and if you picture like I don't know early 90s amusement arcade sort of look and feel, and it had you went through the door, and then to your left was quite an open area, and to your left there was like a bank of machines, and there was like a change box, and a little old woman sat in there, and we ended up walking in, saw a lot of luck. It's like, right, I'm going to do that. So we jumped on a lot of luck, and couldn't believe my luck when it literally went da-da-da pretty much straight away on me. So I knocked it back, took a quid, or killed the board. I can't remember what I did. And hear a voice. You had jackpot there. And I just played dumb. I was like, oh, I've never played this before. And what do you mean? And she just fucking come over, this little woman out the box, and said, yeah, it was all red on trail, you had jackpot, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, right, I didn't realise that. Like, plain dumb. At that point, the experienced me is probably going, right, I'll just take a quick pinch, get off the fucking machine, take the money and run. But like the naive me at the time was like, I'll stay on this. So gets up again, got another one, knocked it back, and then this time she didn't come and say anything to me. I just got just carried on playing. All of a sudden, everything in the arcade went off like full power cut. So everyone stood around, and I just assumed it was actually a power cut. Like literally everything had gone dead. So everyone stood at the machines. There's like maybe 3 other people in there slotting. They're like obviously like regulars, like grannies and shit, playing like low techs and whatever like they do, and bar X's and that. And waited a bit, and the machines turned on again. So I was like, oh, it's been power cut. Like just sort of shrugged my shoulders and carried on. And then I can't have been into it for more than about a tenner. Like it were pretty quick. Sorry. And I ended up putting £1 in it, and then half the machines went off this time. So she obviously didn't mean to turn off all the machines, including a lot of luck. And then pretty much saw me get out, and I was like, what on earth? Like, what for? You know what you're doing, and booted me. Now, I didn't know the trick for Secret 7 at the time, and I remember literally sending every player that I knew from online to that arcade. After that point, I was that pissed about it. Like I was seething about it. Like literally into it for a tenner. And that's my first proper barring. And I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming about it. I guess then I recall there's so many instances, I guess, and it was getting to the point, I suppose, where it weren't always like that. Like I remember going into local bookmakers, and I went on Squids In and ran Squids In out. There was 2 bookmakers in my town at the time, and it was like the one near the amusement arcade that I had. And I walked into there, and I rolled the Squids In. I remember changing the money up in the bookies, and they had 2 machines, I think, at the time. It had something like a Mizuma or something along those lines, and then it had the Squids, and the Squids was always pretty decent in there. So I remember going to a change thing, and the bird that worked there was like, I said, roughly my age, and she was banging, and changed up money with her, and she was like, what are you doing tonight? Do you fancy taking me out? I was like, and she were banging as well. I was like, yeah, unfortunately I'm seeing someone, and I had to turn it down. But yeah, I mean, like you weren't always treated like some sort of master criminal for winning out of a fruity. Sometimes it was complete opposite. But it got to the point, I suppose, where I was looking around and I was thinking, well, I actually like to go out drinking on a Friday and Saturday night. I'll start to travel a little bit further afield, and I started to go to like neighbouring towns a bit more and going a bit further afield. And that's why I ended up going to places, 20, 30 minutes away, and ended up in places like Macclesfield. I mean, that whole A6 run was pretty decent, to be honest with you, all the way down from Stockport. It was pretty good, all the way down the A6, down through like Poynton and through to Mac. I mean, Mac was pretty affluent, and there was lots of little villages around there. I mean, I don't know if people know the area, but that back in the day, all the footballers lived around there. Alex Ferguson and stuff lived around there. There's some pretty wealthy, affluent people around that area, and it's not just footballers, but yeah, fair few wealthy people. And generally, if you got to the country pubs out there, you're pretty good, to be honest with you. Anywhere from sort of Poynton onwards, it was simple profit, but I suppose that's why I kind of, in my own mind, in my own head, decided I was going to go a little bit further afield, was because I was starting to get bad from places. And yeah, I mean, it's one of them. I mean, I think I said in the first video, I'd kind of touched on a couple of my dad's barrings, but I recall one specific one. So there's a pub that it was a food pub and a drinking pub, and some Cockneys had taken over this place, and we went in. It was relatively local to his house as well. We're talking like kind of half a mile, and we went in, and it had something like a Monty Python Arabian Night, something along those lines. And it played like a pig. It was an absolute pig. It was a pain in the ass, and we did eventually streak it. And I think we made probably after drinks maybe like a tenner out of it. We didn't make much, but obviously my dad was drinking beer and that. And we went to the bar to get another drink, and the Cockney woman behind it went, "You're both bad." It's like, really? Like, come on, I'm out me old man, for fuck's sake. And he's drinking, and they barred us. And like, the funny bit about it, the best bit about that story is that um, he obviously took my mum out for meals and stuff on like a Saturday night, and he couldn't explain to her why he couldn't take her in this particular sort of foodie pub for a meal because he'd been booted from the machines. I mean, got to the point like I think where the local con club had a club give us a break in, and I think I've said it was there for 2 years, at least 2 years. And the reason it stayed so long is that my dad got himself put on the committee because we both liked the machine and we made some seriously good money out of it every week. We potted it at least once a week. In fact, we knew when the cash pot was due, and we potted it, but he was on the committee, so he never got himself into any grief for winning out of it very consistently as well. So that was I suppose one way of getting around some of the barrings. But it was there for 2 years, and I think we had the cash pot out every time the cash pot came out. It was us in a good couple of years on that machine. It was a damn good machine. We very much enjoyed it. He had other times he got booted from places. He was probably a bit unlucky with it, to be honest with him, my old man, that he always seemed to run into them. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of why it gave me the scope to start travelling a bit further afield. And because I was meeting people like Pete, and I was slotting out with Pete, slotting out with Matt, slotting out with other people, because I was going out further afield, I wasn't that arsed. I mean, go to some of the tricks. Don't know what's the first ones that sort of come to mind. Numbering machines, never really got barred for numbering machines. Did very well with it, and I think that's because with numbering machines generally, you make a pretty slow profit with JPMs and Ace machines. I mean, I even went into a place that had a high impact, and it was like being in somebody's front room. And I never got bad for anything like that. I got bad from all sorts of places, bookies, independent, not like mainstream. So there were quite a few little independents not around, and I did get booted from a few of them. But yeah, mainly pubs. To the point where there are some good stories. There are some good stories around it. I'll save them for a bit. I'll come back to them in a bit. But yeah, so a number of machines never got barred from. It was probably more of a streaky bar crest that kind of got you barred. And it got to the point where you got better at it as well, where you'd hide it better, you'd change more money at the bar, and you'd make it look like you were losing, and you tried to be clever, take money out in little bits rather than take out a big wedge of cash. So you were kind of clever. I mean, it got to the point with stuff like Champ Soccers and Super League Rugbies where you could literally walk to the window of a pub, look through the window, and go, "Yep, I'm going to go and buy half a Coke, or I'm going to go buy a drink, or whatever else," and you'd go in. Because you know you're going to run it. Like, there were stuff like that were just so stupidly easy, and I guess that's gone all the way down the years with different tricks. But I mean, that one unchipped was just a brilliant trick. I mean, at first, I think first thing we used to do was just bang a 5 pence in it or whatever, and that'd just take it out of the trap mode. But you didn't actually have to do it. You just waited for the trap mode to cycle round and see what colour your balls were. It's literally that simple. You just need to look at the machine for a couple of minutes, and you go, "Yep, I'm going to play that one. No, I'm not going to play that one." And it was a very easy source of money, very easy trick. And I mean, when it was streaking, the reels boinged. I mean, there was another one with a Screaming Demon, where it did something different when it was streaking, made different noises. I think the actual logo flashed or something when it was running. Like, there were some very telltale signs with machines. But look, my landlord of my local, he was a good guy. He was called Chris. He was top bloke, actually, to be fair. I'd say more like a mate than a landlord, really, over the years. And I remember when Special Brew and Just Ticket were out, and obviously I was out country doing them. So I was up and down the country. I mean, we were travelling as far. I think I was slotting with Ross at the time, and we were travelling up as far as anywhere basically. I mean, quite a few truckies had them, which were nice. So quite a few truck stops had them. We'd bob into various places. We were doing them up and down the country, touring around for them, and like everybody else really. I think we're on it relatively early enough, and got one put in my local. I turned up one day for like pool, because obviously I don't know if people know, but I did play pool. I was on the IPA tour, and in the days we had to qualify for the IPA tour. So yeah, I mean, I was quite fortunate to be a reasonable player, and yeah, I mean, I remember going to Morley at Leeds to qualify for the tour at some place. And I qualified. I don't know if anybody's interested in pool, but I qualified in the same group as a guy called Arfan Dad, who is now a top pool player. In fact, actually topped the group that we were in. It was like a round robin format, but I'm massively digressing here, aren't I? Anyway, so I goes into my local, and there's a Just Ticket, and I turned around to the landlord, like I said, who's a mate, and I got on well with, and I just went, I've got an empty for that, I can beat that machine. And bear in mind, he knew what I did, because I changed a lot of coins to him over the years. And he went, well, if you want to go halves on it, I don't want another trick, I'm not even interested. He said, if you want to go halves on it, then it's all yours. So I was like, well, it's local, my local, I'm not going to piss him off because he's a good mate. And yeah, we literally went halves on the machine and did the machine every week or so. Which is probably a bit naughty from a landlord's point of view, but yeah, from my I weren't arguing, I weren't complaining, I was quite happy, to be honest with you. So that was one of the more sort of interesting tricks. We didn't have that for that long. It wasn't one we had for, a mass length of time, but yeah, it happened. I mean, a lot of those early extremes were quite profitable, your Inka-Dinka-Doos and that, they were quite good for profit, and they were normally good for running because a lot of people just didn't force them out, certainly not in the locals and that. Don't know what other tricks were there that we were doing. There's so many. The worst thing is, I'll drive in car somewhere and I'll be thinking about it, and I was going, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that empty, I forgot to mention that empty, I forgot to mention that trick. Oh, there's another one for you. So I think I put a picture of it in the third video, snake rattle and roll, and you've got cop the lot as well. And one of the Welsh lads put us onto it. Came from nowhere, this one. And not the trick. The trick, I can't even remember where that came from. That's one of them tricks that we all kind of found out together to a point. I mean, it was very much, you just all sort of found out within a bit of time of each other, not much. And yeah, it was a bit after the event. It weren't right at the start, but there was a cop a lot in Strensham Services northbound. It'd been there for quite a while, and it worked. We knew that one worked, but it's one of the Welsh lads actually put us onto it and said, "Yeah, mate, if you just turn off the machine and then turn it back on the boot up screen, it gives you a long number. Well, it's this number is the unchipped ROMs." And of course, once we realised that and the snake rattle and roll one, just flicked them all off and on to see what program they were on. God, that was so bloody easy. Like, we didn't even think about it, but I mean, Belfruit were that stupid that they literally told you the ROM revision on the boot up screen, and it stays on there for quite a time as well. It's like, really? I mean, we bumped into, I mean, me and Ross, I remember bumping into a player from a lad from Wales who'd actually given up, and he'd ended up buying the extreme refill key trick, not empty, but obviously buying that, and he literally just toured the country doing them. And whilst we did do them when we saw them, they were kind of a bit of an oversight, I suppose, for us. Like, we did them, but we weren't really chasing round after them as such. We thought keying them in pubs was probably a tiny bit hot. So we didn't really tend to key them much in pubs unless they were sort of secluded. We tended to just play them out for the olds and stuff like that. But certainly in the services, if we saw them, we did them. But we weren't, bumping into somebody that started again because of that buying that information, which we'd had for a while anyway at this point. There's certainly opportunity around that we missed out on. Ultimo was a great example for us of something that lasted forever. Because, I mean, you have to bear in mind that Revolution and Battle Axe got rechipped eventually. It wasn't quickly, but it got rechipped. And yet, Rev and Axe were released on 15. Ultimo wasn't released till 25. And that's why a lot of people have said in the comments when I did Ultimo, people said they could do it, but I never saw it done. And it was purely down to the fact that it was emptyable, exactly the same way. It's just a time consuming trick. So I mean, I think that way we got lucky with that one. I mean, there's one in Blackpool. It was on the pub at the Pleasure Beach, and it was near the Avalanche. There was a pub, and it had that, and I can't remember what else it had. It's kind of largely irrelevant, to be honest. Whatever else it had, but we had one in there, and it was there forever. Like, literally forever. It could be a ball ache, but in that pub, because it's on the Pleasure Beach, nobody really gave a shit how long you were there for, if you did take you a bit of time, and we did go and do it quite frequently, and it was pretty good to us. And then eventually they moved it out of there, and they stuck it in the Dome Arcade, which was like literally round the corner, again on the Pleasure Beach, and they stuck it in there, and it were there for God knows how long afterwards. So I mean, we were quite lucky with that. There were loads of, like, Crew. There was an arcade in Crew that had one. There were several bookmakers, and they had them in the bookmakers. I think we maybe even had one on Crew Train Station. Crew Train Station was always really good. It had like 2 bars, one either side of the thing, and I do put a picture up of Crew Station in the third part. But we used to go there all the time. Then there was a pub across the road from that, which had a Japaters in, which we did quite frequently. They weren't even asked in there. We did Japaters quite a lot as well. So I mean, it was pretty good round there. Like, there was a reason. There was a big chain pub on the outskirts of Crewe. Don't know if it's even still there. We used to sleep in car park. We used to literally sleep in car park, and when they opened up at doors, I think it was like 11 o'clock there, we were straight in. And we used to have, I think at one point we had a Vivid, a Golden Dragon, and an Ultimo in there. So 3 machines, and they were all just absolutely mint machines for us. And we'd literally sleep on the doorstep and just get in there at 11 o'clock in the morning, do Crew, and then jet back off on the motorway and go south. Stafford was another one that I touched on, I think, in third video, but I didn't explain it. We used to park in a hotel car park, and I try and find it. And the hotel car park was barriered, but you could get in and out. We twigged it anyway. We knew you just needed the code, and they just give you a code. You just think we're staying in the hotel, I think. And in the bar, it had an Austin Powers, and it was probably the best Austin Powers we ever had. It was just so profitable. But I mean, in the town, I think there was an Italian Job too. In one of the arcades, there was at least a Rev or an Axe in one of them. It was it's just so profitable. And I think we were just coming into the days of having Weatherspoons. Weatherspoons was just sort of becoming a thing, and we were bobbing into the spoons and doing the spoons, because they were just great source of profit. And the spoons in Stafford's actually really nice. It's like a converted theatre. The one in March is a converted theatre, but the one in Stafford was really nice. You sort of come in from the back, from where you would have got your tickets, and you walk down. But that used to have 4 machines in, and they were always off of boxes. They were always decent. So I mean, in terms of stops, we did a lot of stops up north. Again, when I go into the third video, I don't really talk about where we stopped sort of further down the road. We used to bob into in Banbury a lot. Banbury was all that area was good, to be honest with you. Banbury, Bicester, Warwick was actually Unitown. That was always really good. And again, it was just before the services coming south, so we'd bob into Warwick for a couple of hours, do a few bits around there, and then jet back onto the motorway. And of course, a lot of it was strategic. We would just jet off and on motorways when we'd seen other players, and yeah, you almost get a feel for it. But again, when I did a third, I just don't cover any of that stuff. So I kind of thought that I needed to put this in between so that people saw the in between, and I'll still end up coming out of this video and going, oh, I can't believe I never mentioned that. I never mentioned this, never mentioned that. And there are one or two tricks I'm not mentioning because, like, I'm choosing not to, I guess. But yeah, there are one or two tricks that I'm going to sort of skate around, but I didn't mention. And going back to the Blackpool thing, I started when I guess when me and my missus sort of got together, and then when we'd had our first kid, we used to go up to Blackpool just on a Sunday. Like, it was a regular Sunday thing. Like, I'd have been a fairly familiar face around Blackpool back in the day, because I used to go there fairly frequently, and my day pretty much consisted of a day around the slots and make some money. It's obviously I was targeting specific things like red arrows and things that would show. And there was other stuff and things, yeah, obviously later down the line. The Ultimo didn't exist to me at that point, but yeah, I was targeting specifics. And there were a lot of JPMs, to be fair, back in the day, back in Blackpool. It was pretty good for them. And we'd have a wander around there, I'd make a bit of money, and we'd go and get a KFC and then drive home. And that was pretty much like, I guess, me starting to go a little bit further afield and trek around. But yeah, it's just more the fact that I guess all of these things start to shape you a little bit, don't they? And that's kind of how a lot of my experience is when is another one for you. So I mean, like me and Ross, random spinners. So we did get random spinner, not early, but early enough. I mean, I was still slotting sort of with Pete. In fact, I was slotting with Pete and I was slotting with Ross, so I must have had it a bit. And another thing about the service is that I guess to take for granted is you find out stuff because things are off, because people overshoot the mark, how you don't keep it back in, don't cover the tracks very well. And if you walked through a pattern of like a few places and you saw stuff off, which eventually we did with random spinners, we knew that was something out there, and that's when a lot of information starts getting leaked because people start to find out. But yeah, I mean, we Matlock Bath, arcade in Matlock Bath. We're a bit stupid, really. Me and Ross, it was definitely me and Ross this day, and we went in there. We used sort of that as one of the routes over towards the M1, to cut across from like Manchester over, and we ended up just Matlock Bath's like a little Blackpool. It's only got like 4 or 5 arcades, and there was some good stuff there. I used to jet over there on a weekend from time to time, and I think I've said I've done the £5 fight night when it used to have a £5 fight night in one of the arcades. That's actually ironically why Ben bought fight night off me, because he remembers it from his local arcade, and I was emptying it. That very same machine, ironic in it. But so random spinner, we goes into one of the arcades there, and I think the worst thing about it is it was a chain of arcades, and they were all over like kind of places that I went to, and we ended up going in, doing a random spinner, no heat, no problems, no nothing. But we didn't it'd been a bit of a pain in the ass, but we'd made a bit of money out of it. And we didn't want to take the piss, or I didn't want to take the piss. And so I was like, right, let's just get off, like go somewhere else, and like, we'll come back, do it next week or whatever if it's still there. And Ross like got his car and he's like, can we go back and just get another bit out of it, like it won't take me long. So I was like, well, fuck all else me to play around here, mate. And he, I guess I know it's profit, but like unscathed. No hassle, like, no, let's go back in. So he insisted, we went back in against my better judgment this one, and within about 10 minutes of going back in, they'd obviously been and checked the machine on the interim and seen we'd had money out of it, I don't know, or they'd been watching cameras or whatever, and literally got booted within 10 minutes, and that was fucking frustrating, that one, because it was, the arcade was good to us, it had some decent bits in there as well, and it was more through stupidity. We could have got away with it, and the heat would have probably died off, and we'd have come back at a later point, and a week or two later, and they'd have forgotten about us. But yeah, it wasn't to be. It was a stupid barring that happened. So yeah, I mean there were stuff like that. I don't know. So yeah, then that's kind of why I ended up on the roads, and it was not like to Pete and Just, I suppose maybe a bit of a badge of honour, that they were barred from places, um, because in both of them made it to like the press, national press or whatever else, and it just made it to TV. I think Pete might have as well, to be honest. I can't quite remember, but yeah, to both of them it was a bit of a badge of honour. Whereas to me, it was always just a great source of frustration because I wasn't doing anything wrong. I mean, I'd say the worst things I ever did in terms of fruit machines was probably turned one or two of them off to kill boards. Like I never turned stuff off to make it forget about a win or anything like that. It was just, like for me, I think I was probably, I'd say, pretty clean. I just played fruit machines. I didn't tool, never tooled anything in my life. It was just I played them and made money out of them. So for me, like the barrings to me was just a source of frustration, and it was never a good thing. No matter how many times it happened, it did happen a lot of times. Never a good thing to me. It just pissed me off, to be honest with you, for a variety of reasons. But it was what it was. Um, so yes, to other people, maybe a bit of a badge of honour. I definitely want to hear about barrings and funny barrings and stuff like that. And like I know Bucket said about Heckman Wyke, or whatever it's called. It's not Heckman Wiki or whatever he called it, but Heckman Wyke. The only reason I know how that place is pronounced is again because a famous pool player used to live there when I was on the tour, and he had where you were from on there. So yeah, I've gone back a few years. So a guy called Mick Hill, who's a very famous 8 ball player, lived there back in the day. I don't know if he still does, but yeah, he did. He certainly did then. He's from Midlands. Um, so yeah, I mean, like you end up getting about, and you get about because you become a fresh face. You're not familiar. Nobody knows who you are, and you don't get. Very rarely do you get booted first time. You do from time to time. You do get some horrible ones, and I'm sure people have got some funny ones. I'm sure people got some horrible ones, and some very very frustrating ones. And I guess I'll leave you on the last thing. So, obviously I mentioned Pete quite a lot because he did spend a lot of time with me on the road over certainly the years, and I remember he was quite pally with the manager. He knew the managers at South Wheat, which is like Motto on the M6, not that far. He was there quite frequently. Me and him used to go down and do machines quite a lot down there. And I say down, but it was more down from his house rather than that was massively up for me. Somewhere that I had a car crash as well when he was in the car. Rob managed to write off my Astra, going from one side of the services to the flaming other side of the services. And we'd gone southbound, which was normal. Then we'd go down a little sort of like country lane, and when you sort of cut through, now most of the services are pretty straightforward. This one was a bit of a pain in the ass, and some dickhead pulled out into a 60-mile-an-hour road, country lane I will add, and got ploughed into by another car, which finished that trip off pretty badly and annoyed me. So I ended up losing my car, got written off, which is a bit annoying. I think Pete broke his glasses. But anyway, yeah, back to that. So he was quite pally with the managers there, and to the point where the manager was pretty open and said they had dossiers on us all. They knew all about us. We knew where we go, and they knew loads about us as players. Because they were always whether we were up to no good, I suppose, and yeah, we never were. We never got caught for anything. I mean, I never once had the police involved. I suppose the only time I ever recall the police ever, or at least the fear of the police, was the odd place that I used to go in, that I went to, and I've even seen landlords like scribbling down my car edge as I was driving away. It happened at a pub near the Cat and Fiddle, which is like between sort of Buxton, Congleton, Macclesfield, and I went in there. I can't think I was with. I might have been on my own, might have been with somebody, I can't remember. And had a rev in there and ran the rev, and obviously levered it. It was off his tits, and we ended up getting thrown. But did we get thrown? No, we just went as we were going. We could literally see the landlord in the window, like with a piece of paper and a pen scribbling. You could see it scribbling down my reg, and my type of car and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I never got stopped by the police. I mean, I'm aware of other slaughters happening to them. I mean, I recall there was a Welsh lad called Craig who sadly died. And I used to see Craig on roads an awful lot, and he told me a story of when he had his Volkswagen Golf that he had with a good couple of grand's worth of coins in, and the police stopped him and confiscated the car temporarily. And then I think he said to me, like, they'd wrote to him several weeks later saying you can have your car back because he couldn't find anything, and he never went and collected the car. So I mean, there's probably a few like that. I mean, I remember in days when I used to go down sort of the Kent area, driving down sort of Tunbridge. There's like that A road where they got the big bridges that you drive down towards Tunbridge, and they like go over the top. And the amount of cars that you used to see down there just abandoned at the side of the road, just literally, I don't know what the crack was with them, whether they broke down or whatever else. But always old bangers, and they were always just abandoned at the side of the road. That was always a bit of a strange thing to see. But I mean, I enjoyed a lot of certainly the earlier years, and I think if you ask me about it now, like, I look back at it very fondly now. I did miss it when I stopped, and there's a lot of reasons I'll come to probably later on down the line with why I stopped, but I did miss it. Like when I did stop, I did miss it, and I consider myself very lucky that, you know, I ended up where I've ended up in terms of like doing a YouTube channel and stuff, and that's allowed me to I guess carry on the journey. You know, and obviously I'll probably the last sort of podcasty video type thing I ever do will be on like, I guess, the more current time and the things that I've done, and the YouTube channel, I guess. But I mean, I guess that's something for down the line, isn't it? This is still kind of the early years.